Emotional incest, also known as covert incest or enmeshment, is a term used to describe a type of unhealthy relationship between a parent or caregiver and a child. It is characterized by the parent or caregiver relying on the child for emotional support and treating them as a substitute partner or confidant, blurring the boundaries that should exist within a healthy parent child relationship. In emotional incest, the parent may turn to the child for emotional validation, companionship, or intimacy that should be sought from other adults. The child is often burdened with adult responsibilities and may be expected to fulfill the emotional needs of the parent. This can interfere with the child's emotional development and create long lasting negative effects on their well being. Some common characteristics of emotional incest include role reversal. The child is placed in the surrogate spouse or confidant role, providing emotional support and companionship to the parent. Emotional dependency. The parent relies heavily on the child for emotional validation, comfort, and intimacy. Lack of boundaries. The parent fails to establish healthy emotional boundaries with the child, treating them more like an equal or adult partner than a child. Inappropriate sharing. The parent may share intimate details about their personal life, relationships, or problems with the child, which can be overwhelming and inappropriate for their age and developmental stage. Neglecting the child's needs. The parent may be preoccupied with their emotional needs and ignore the child's need for guidance, support, and attention. Emotional incest can have significant emotional and psychological consequences for the child. They may experience feelings of confusion, guilt, and shame. It can interfere with the child's ability to form healthy relationships in the future, establish appropriate boundaries, and develop a strong sense of self. When discussing emotional incest, the terms overt and covert are sometimes used to differentiate between different manifestations or degrees of the behavior. Let's explore the differences between overt and covert emotional incest. Overt emotional incest. Overt emotional incest refers to a more explicit and obvious form of inappropriate emotional bonding between a parent or caregiver and a child. It involves direct and explicit behaviors that cross the boundaries of a healthy parent-child relationship. Examples of overt emotional incest may include sexualizing the relationship with the child, engaging in physical contact that is inappropriate for the child's age, or engaging in explicit sexual conversations. Covert emotional incest. Covert emotional incest, also known as enmeshment, is characterized by more subtle and indirect behaviors that blur the boundaries between the parent and child. It involves emotional enmeshment, where the parent relies on the child for emotional support and companionship in ways that are more typical of a partner or confidant. Examples of covert emotional incest may include confiding in the child about adult relationship problems, expecting the child to fulfill the emotional needs of the parent, or relying on the child for companionship and validation. While overt emotional incest is more overtly inappropriate and crosses clear boundaries, covert emotional incest can be more challenging to recognize because the behaviors may not appear as obviously inappropriate. Both overt and covert emotional incest can have negative consequences on the child's emotional well-being and development. It's important to note that the terms overt and covert are not always used consistently and may vary in their usage depending on the context or the professional discussing the subject. The key focus should be on recognizing and addressing the unhealthy dynamics and impacts on the child rather than getting caught up in terminology. Emotional incest can have significant effects on an individual's ability to form and maintain healthy relationships with their partners in adulthood. Here are some ways emotional incest can impact relationships. Emotional dependency. Growing up in an emotionally incestuous relationship, a person may have developed a strong emotional dependency on their parent. They may have relied on their parent for emotional support, validation, and companionship, which can make it difficult for them to establish emotional independence and form healthy boundaries in their adult relationships. This emotional dependency can put a strain on their romantic relationships, as they may seek the same level of emotional support and validation from their partner, often placing an excessive burden on the relationship. Difficulty establishing boundaries. Emotional incest blurs the boundaries between parent and child, often resulting in a lack of clear boundaries in adult relationships. Individuals who have experienced emotional incest may struggle to establish and maintain appropriate emotional and personal boundaries with their partners. They may have difficulty recognizing and respecting their own boundaries, as well as the boundaries of their partner, leading to conflicts and challenges in the relationship. Intimacy issues. Emotional incest can impact an individual's ability to develop healthy intimacy in relationships. They may have learned to equate emotional intimacy with their parent, and as a result, they may struggle to establish intimacy with their partner. They may fear emotional vulnerability, have difficulties trusting their partner, or struggle to express their own emotions. This can create emotional distance and prevent the development of deep, meaningful connections with their partner. Relationship role confusion. In emotional incest, the child often assumes the role of a surrogate spouse or confidant. As a result, individuals who have experienced emotional incest may struggle with role confusion in their adult relationships. They may feel pressure to take on a caregiving role or feel responsible for their partner's emotional well-being. This can lead to imbalanced dynamics and an unhealthy power dynamic within the relationship. Repetition of unhealthy patterns. Without awareness and intervention, individuals who have experienced emotional incest may unknowingly repeat these unhealthy patterns in their own relationships. They may seek out partners who exhibit similar traits or behaviors to their parent, perpetuating the cycle of emotional incest. The effects of emotional incest can extend beyond romantic relationships and impact friendships as well. Here are some ways emotional incest can affect friendships. Difficulty establishing boundaries. Individuals who have experienced emotional incest may struggle with setting and maintaining boundaries in their friendships. They may have difficulty recognizing when their friends are crossing their boundaries or may have challenges asserting their own boundaries. This can lead to feelings of resentment, frustration, and confusion within friendships. Intimacy issues. Emotional incest can impact an individual's ability to develop and maintain intimate friendships. They may have learned to associate emotional intimacy with their parent, making it challenging to establish deep emotional connections with friends. They may fear vulnerability or have difficulty trusting others, which can hinder the development of close, supportive friendships. Codependency. Emotional incest can contribute to the development of codependent tendencies in friendships. Individuals may rely heavily on their friends for emotional support, validation, and companionship, just as they did with their parent. This can create imbalanced dynamics and place an excessive burden on their friends, leading to strain in the friendships. Difficulty with autonomy. Emotional incest can result in a lack of emotional autonomy, making it challenging for individuals to cultivate a sense of individuality within their friendships. They may struggle with asserting their own opinions, making independent decisions, or pursuing their own interests, as they may have learned to prioritize the needs and emotions of others over their own. Trust issues. Emotional incest can erode trust in relationships, including friendships. If individuals have experienced betrayal or emotional manipulation in their parent-child relationship, they may carry trust issues into their friendships. They may have difficulty trusting their friends' intentions or may be hypersensitive to signs of emotional manipulation or deceit. It is important to note that the effects of emotional incest on friendships can vary depending on the individual and their specific experiences. The effects of emotional incest can also extend to professional relationships. impacting an individual's interactions and dynamics in the workplace. Here are some ways emotional incest can affect professional relationships. Boundary issues. Individuals who have experienced emotional incest may struggle with establishing and maintaining appropriate boundaries in professional settings. They may have difficulty recognizing when their colleagues or superiors are crossing professional boundaries or may have challenges asserting their own boundaries. This can lead to blurred lines between personal and professional relationships, potentially impacting teamwork, respect, and professionalism. Difficulty with authority figures. Emotional incest can influence an individual's perception of authority figures, such as managers or supervisors. If they had a parent who relied on them for emotional support or treated them as a confidant, they may struggle with navigating power dynamics in the workplace. They may find it challenging to establish a healthy balance between respecting authority and advocating for their own needs and boundaries. Codependency dynamics. Emotional incest can contribute to the development of codependent tendencies in professional relationships. Individuals may feel compelled to take on excessive responsibilities, seek approval, or become overly invested in the emotions and well-being of their colleagues. This can impact their ability to assert themselves, collaborate effectively, and maintain healthy professional boundaries. Impaired communication skills. Emotional incest can influence an individual's communication patterns and styles. They may struggle with assertiveness, expressing their needs and opinions clearly, or advocating for themselves in professional settings. They may fear conflict or have difficulties in receiving constructive feedback, which can impact their professional growth and relationships with colleagues. Trust and collaboration issues. Emotional incest can impact an individual's ability to trust and collaborate with colleagues in the workplace. They may need help trusting the intentions and actions of others, leading to challenges in building effective professional relationships. This can hinder teamwork, collaboration, and overall productivity. Addressing the effects of emotional incest on professional relationships may require therapy or counseling to work through and heal from the trauma. Developing healthy communication skills, setting boundaries, and establishing a sense of autonomy can support individuals in navigating professional environments more effectively and fostering healthier relationships with colleagues and superiors. Emotional incest and emotional infidelity are distinct concepts, although they both involve emotional dynamics in relationships. Here is a brief explanation of each term. 1. Emotional incest. Emotional incest, also known as covert incest or enmeshment, refers to an unhealthy relationship dynamic between a parent or caregiver and a child. It involves the parent relying on the child for emotional support, validation, or companionship in ways that are typically reserved for adult relationships. Emotional incest blurs boundaries and can hinder a child's emotional development, impacting their ability to form healthy relationships in the future. 2. Emotional infidelity. Emotional infidelity occurs when a person in a committed relationship forms an emotional connection or bond with someone outside of the relationship that goes beyond platonic friendship. It involves sharing intimate thoughts, feelings, and emotional support with this person, often without the knowledge or consent of their partner. Emotional infidelity can lead to feelings of betrayal, breach of trust, and damage to the primary romantic relationship. While emotional incest primarily refers to the unhealthy dynamics within a parent-child relationship, emotional infidelity typically relates to romantic or committed partnerships. The two concepts differ in terms of the relationship dynamics involved and the impact they have on individuals and relationships. However, it is worth noting that both emotional incest and emotional infidelity can have significant emotional and psychological consequences. They can erode trust, lead to feelings of betrayal, and impact the ability to establish and maintain healthy emotional connections in relationships. Seeking therapy or counseling can help address and heal from the effects of emotional incest or managing the aftermath of emotional infidelity.